WebEngage is a B2B SaaS company. We help brands with their customer retention. WebEngage as a tool is divided essentially in three major parts: the customer data platform, the engagement tool, and a very powerful personalization engine. We work with more than 600 brands globally in the Middle East, in India, in the Southeast Asia region. And we have clients across the new economy, the startup folks, as well as the old economy, legacy enterprise businesses. I lead global comms at WebEngage. Internally and externally, I also look after the associations, the advocacy side of things, and to a large extent, the events and speaker relationship side of things. We do a whole bunch of events which involve community building for retention marketing. As a B2B SaaS company, you have clients across different verticals. So to be able to keep a tab on what's being spoken about, to be able to understand what's being written about the ecosystem becomes very difficult. At the same time, from a geography perspective, the challenges are pretty natural, if I may call it that way, because as you progress from one country to another, the nuances of the media, how the media is consumed, and how the media writes for its audience becomes difficult, becomes different. At the same time, there's a whole bunch of language barrier that comes in. How do you essentially put all of this on a single dashboard to actually make sense out of it? Has been a challenge when we started off. Which, if I may put it in as many words, got solved when we got Viziki on board. So that information for me to make decisions is now available on a single dashboard. When we started building the machinery for PR, we realized the most important element that was perhaps needed the most was a tool that can help us track the conversations in the ecosystem, what the competition is talking about, and to be able to measure the impact of PR on a periodic basis, to be able to tell us whether or not we're on the right track or what kind of course correction is required and things like that. There's a whole bunch of different players within the industry who do practically pretty much the same job that Viziki does. The only difference being Viziki turns out to be very intuitive, and it gives me exactly what I'm looking for to be able to measure the kind of work that we're doing. And I'll give you an example. I'm talking about early 2010 when I started off. I used to work for a B2C company which had a whole bunch of news which was not exactly relevant. This included stock news, this included random mentions and other articles and things like that. So there was this mechanism of qualifying all the articles that had been captured by the tracking service, which required a whole bunch of manual intervention, which required us to sit through and skim through all the articles to actually understand whether this is a absolutely relevant article, somewhat relevant article, not relevant at all, and things like that. And there are whole different metrics to it as we go, but the times have changed, and we're surprised to see that most of the other players may not have actually reached that maturity, but Viziki had. Now, with a simple modification of a project that I see within the dashboard, I can make sure some of the articles that are not really relevant and may not really impact the share of voice can be excluded very easily, or at the same time included if they're relevant from that perspective. And this stands not just for WebEngage as a company, but also some of the other industry peers that we are tracking for. So that has kind of helped us very, very dearly. What has also helped us is the fact that the dashboard is so intuitive. It gives me all the graphs and all the information at a single dashboard on a single screen, which I can just explain to the management in as simple words as it can get. PR is still yet to evolve, where we can come to a point where attribution can uh, possibly become real. Now I've been following the developments of Ziki purely because we use it day in and day out. And we have to understand how we are faring as compared to the peers in the industry and things like that. But I did see a very huge step in the right direction when Viziki started the Google Analytics feature, which helped me understand if I put out a particular announcement, how many people have actually come in and visited the website. Now, this might not give me an absolute attribution from a viewpoint of knowing whether this is through a press release or through an article or through an op-ed or various other media sources. So while that is hard to identify at this point of time, but I can tell you for a fact, I don't think a lot of people have been thinking in this direction. How do you start attribution for all your news efforts that you're doing? What Viziki has been able to do that sets it apart from its competition is the fact that it helps me gather a whole bunch of information about the journalists that are writing on the topic of my interest and the brand's interest across different publications. While Viziki also, helps us reach out to these journalists through the dashboard itself. We don't necessarily use that service at this point of time, but it still gives us enough valuable information about who this journalist is, what they have written in the past, how many stories they have written in the past, what does the trend look like when this particular journalist is writing the stories. It helps us devise the messaging and the story pitch and the concept note in a way that helps me increase that number of organic mentions that we'll probably get in the next 6 months, and that's something that we're consciously working towards. This is where Viziki has played a very important role in helping us not just map the stories and the conversations that are happening, but also the people who are writing about it.